أهلا وسهلا مشاهدي قناة الشرق في هذا اللقاء الخاص والذي نستضيف فيه الدكتور كونوراد بيسيندورفر الرئيس التنفيذي للهيئة العامة للإحصاء في السعودية. مرحبا بك دكتور. في البداية دعني أبدأ معك في هذا السؤال. هيئة الإحصاءات العامة في السعودية هي جهة حكومية، ولأول مرة يسلم منصب الرئيس التنفيذي لغير سعودي. لماذا برأيك تم اختياركم، وماذا ستقدمون للهيئة العامة للإحصاء؟
Thank you very much for having me. It's a great pleasure to have this interview with you. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is currently undergoing a huge transformation with a great vision 2030, with many projects that are important for this country, for the development of the economy, development of the population here in this country and the society. In order to be successful with this vision, you need to know where you stand, and you need to monitor progress to achieve those goals. And for that, you need a good and sound statistical evidence base. What I can contribute here is bringing my experience of 10 years leading a Western European statistical office, of leading the OECD group of chief statisticians of OECD countries, and also of chairing important committees on statistics in the European Union. And I want to contribute to the development in this country by bringing my experience to the Authority of Statistics in Saudi Arabia.
عملت سابقا كرئيس لهيئة الإحصاء أو المركز الإحصاء في النمسا، وأيضا إضافة إلى عملك كمستشار مالي واقتصادي في البنك الأوروبي. هل جهاز الإحصاء السعودي يواكب أجهزة الإحصاء الأوروبية، وما أوجه الاختلاف والتشابه بينهما؟
As a statistics office, you need to look to two sides. One side is the national needs for data and the national needs for statistics, and this is defined by the goals the leadership and the government set themselves to achieve. So you need to provide data and statistics to support those goals. On the other side, you want to be internationally comparable, and this is where the European statistical system is very strong. A lot of European statistics is regulated across European countries because international comparability of data is very, very important in Europe. Now, in Saudi Arabia, we try to support the Vision 2030 goals with national statistics supporting those policy ambitions. But international comparability has become more and more important also for Saudi Arabia as the economy, as the society gets more integrated with the international world, with the international economy. And if you have international organizations or international investors looking to the Saudi economy, they want to see internationally comparable data. They want to see whether development in the country is comparable to other countries and whether Saudi Arabia is a good place to invest their money in. In Europe, we have very strong quality standards, we have very strong governance standards in statistics, and we also have a very good coverage of statistics in all different kinds of domains. Here, I hope to contribute in this country to support the quality, to make data easier accessible in this country, and also to cover data gaps that are currently still there in Saudi Arabia.
تعلم أن عراب الاقتصاد ومهندس الرؤية هو ولي العهد السعودي، والذي يهتم كثيرا بلغة الأرقام في خطاباته وفي مبادراته. متى نرى جهاز إحصاء سعودي ينسجم مع هذا الاهتمام وبالتالي يخدم الاقتصاد الوطني؟
Providing sound evidence in terms of statistics is the basis for good decision making. So I appreciate a lot the Crown Prince's priority to look at data, to see what the evidence is and then take decisions. And we can support him and the leadership in this country in looking at sound internationally comparable data. That is what our main task is, and this is what my strategy for GStat, for the General Authority for Statistics, comprises. We want to stress the quality of data, we want to close data gaps, and we want to improve accessibility to data. People need to see what data tells you about all different kinds of phenomena, on the economy, on the society, and also on other phenomena like the environment, for instance.
يقال أن التخطيط الصحيح يحتاج إلى أرقام صحيحة. كيف يمكن تجويد وتحسين البيئة الإحصائية في السعودية؟ وما التحديات التي تواجه جهاز الإحصاء السعودي؟ وهل المشكلة هي في جمع أم تحليل البيانات؟
A modern statistics institute needs to rely on all different kinds of data sources. Traditionally, GStat, the General Authority for Statistics, was focused on conducting surveys. Surveys are very important, but a modern statistics institute, in addition to surveys, needs to look to administrative data and also to big data, transactional data, all different kinds of data to inform their statistics. And what my plan for this authority includes is data integration from all different kinds of sources. One of the challenges that I am facing here in Saudi Arabia, and we are working on that, is to open up the data gates and to make data easier available for the statistics production of the Saudi Statistics Authority. And administrative data is very, very important to inform our data. So we try to build corporations, we try to build trust with government entities, with a very important entity like SEDAIA, NIC, to build this trustful data relationship, because where we all agree on is that confidential data needs to be kept confidential. But for statistics production, we need to have access to all those different kind of data sources. And that is what we are working on, and this is where I hope that we will be successful in short term.
هناك أرقام متضاربة ومختلفة بين الجهات الحكومية. كيف تجدون تجاوب الجهات الحكومية في العمل معكم؟ وما هي آلية العمل مع الجهات الحكومية؟
I find very much cooperation in government entities. I am privileged to have a very strong board of directors comprising 5 important ministers of the government, and they all express the interest of having high quality data available for their decision making. So I enjoy a lot of support from the government, from the highest leadership, to put together sound statistics and to become a reference for all decision making in the country. This is a long journey. It is not something that you can fix in one day, but I see a lot of cooperation and I see a lot of interest in working on sound, internationally comparable databases when taking decisions in this country, and this is a very good sign.
متى تكون الهيئة العامة للإحصاء مرجعاً معتمداً للأرقام والبيانات الرسمية؟ وما هي أهم البيانات التي تصدرها الهيئة العامة للإحصاء؟
The Statistics Authority produces important indicators like GDP, gross domestic product, national accounts. We measure inflation. Inflation measures the development of prices that consumers pay in supermarkets. We measure the development on labor markets. So we measure unemployment rates, participation rate in the labor market. But we also look at the population at large. So we are currently preparing a very important project which is going to be launched early next year, which is the census. In a census, we want to count every person living in this country to get a good overview of the population structure and development in Saudi Arabia. And this is going to be a milestone in the way to high quality statistics in this country once we have the results of the census, because a lot of statistics build on census information, and this is what we prepare very professionally currently.
ما التطوير الذي تم إضافته للهيئة العامة للإحصاء؟ وما المعايير الإحصائية التي يتم الاعتماد عليها في الإحصاءات المهمة، مثال ذلك أرقام البطالة؟
When you produce important indicators like the unemployment rate or participation rate in the labor market, you need to rely on international standards. In the field of labor market statistics, it is the International Labour Organization, ILO, which sets those standards. And basically what we do in labor market statistics, we try to find out where the population in working age is actually put in three categories. One category is people who are employed, who are working. The second category is people who are unemployed, who are looking for a job, but they are looking for a job in an active way. And the third category is those who we count as out of the labor force. So they are not looking for a job and they are not currently employed. And there are three criteria that we need to follow. The first question we ask is whether you worked in the last 4 weeks. If the answer is yes, then you're part of the group of employed. If the answer is no, then you need to go to the second question to see whether the person qualifies to be unemployed. The second question is, have you been looking actively for a job in the last 4 weeks? If the answer to this question is yes, and then we ask some follow-up questions, then you qualify to be part of the group of unemployed. If the answer is no, I was not looking actively for a job, then you're counted out of the labor force. And even after the second criterion, there's a third criterion for those who are part of the unemployed. You need to be available to take up a job in the coming 2 weeks. So the criterion, are you working? Are you actively looking for a job? And are you available for the labor market? Are internationally established criteria that we also apply when we put together labor market statistics in Saudi Arabia.
هناك من يرى أن بعض المشاريع أو إخفاق بعض المشاريع في الماضي يعود إلى ضعف أو عدم وضوح البيانات والأرقام المقدمة من هيئة الإحصاء السعودية. ماذا تعلق؟
It is part of my strategy to close data gaps. So we are aware that in some fields projects are underway and the data evidence is not sufficient. That is what we try to address by producing new data, by producing statistical products in cooperation with the authorities, with the ministries responsible for those projects. But I also need to stress that it is not sufficient for a statistics office to produce good data. It is also important to communicate data in a clear way, that the interpretation of the statistics of the data produced by the authority is done in a correct way. It doesn't help if you produce statistics, people do not understand and they draw wrong conclusions. So we need to provide context, we need to give explanations for the development of different indicators that are important for decision makers when they decide on projects.
العمل الميداني هو ركيزة أساسية في العمل الإحصائي. ما دور التقنية والذكاء الاصطناعي في تحسين جودة البيانات والأرقام المقدمة؟ وهل يمكن الحصول على بيانات وأرقام ذات موثوقية عالية دون العمل الميداني؟
Statistics needs to build on different data sources. Field work is very important. I'll give you one example. The unemployment rate could not be calculated only on the basis of administrative data or only on the basis of transactional data, big data. You need to talk to people. You need to understand whether people are actively looking for a job, and you cannot do that if you don't interview people. And there are different ways to do that. You can either do personal interviewing, telephone interviewing, or what we also apply, KAWI, which is web interviewing. So you get a questionnaire through the internet and you reply to that. But on the top of surveys, you need to use administrative data. You need to understand what is already there in terms of registers, in terms of data that were collected by the ministry. And there is a third data source, which is big data, transactional data. And especially with the last category, you need to apply modern technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms to understand patterns which are detectable in huge amounts of data. This is too much for a person to digest, so you have algorithms to help you understand what is the systematic behind the data. Is there any information you can retrieve from this big data, or is there not useful information to address the question that you actually want to address? And for those big data fields, you need modern technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms, and that is what a modern statistical institute applies and needs to apply if we want to play in the first league of statistical institutes worldwide.
ماذا تحتاج الهيئة العامة للإحصاء؟ وهل المشكلة تكمن في جمع أم تحليل البيانات؟ وكم عدد الكوادر الذين يعملون في الهيئة العامة للإحصاء؟
We try to produce the most highest quality we can produce. In order to be able to do that, you need to have highly skilled people. So we are recruiting a lot of talent. We are educating people who are already working in GStat. We are forcing training in order to reach this highest level of statistics production. But you also need to understand international standards, and you need to respect international standards. What we have observed is that sometimes international standards do not seem to be well understood in some groups of the society. So we need to explain a lot what we do. We need to be very transparent about the methodologies. We need to explain why do we apply this methodology and not a different one in order to have this comparability of data. And sometimes statistics offices also need to produce and deliver difficult messages. It's not always that indicators go in the right directions. Indicators sometimes, if there is a slump in the economy, they go down, and you need to be transparent just as well when they go down as when they go up. And this is not always well perceived, but I think transparency and truthfulness is the best way to a trustful statistics system in the country, and that's what we try to build, and that's what we try to where we try to contribute from GStat.
هناك أجهزة إحصاء في العالم الغربي يستفيد منها جميع العالم. البيانات والأرقام المقدمة من هيئة الإحصاءات العامة هي موجهة للاقتصاد المحلي الرسمي. متى نرى بيانات وأرقام من هيئة الإحصاءات العامة موجهة للقطاع الخاص وللمستثمر الأجنبي على وجه الخصوص وتخدم رؤية السعودية 2020؟
It is the task of a statistics authority to feed the data needs at the national level, but also on the international level. So already today, international organizations, they draw on data produced by GStat on Saudi Arabia. It is always the National Statistical Institute, which is the main source for international organizations like the International Monetary Fund or the UN or the OECD, to draw on data on the national economy, on the national societies. So it is a responsibility for us in GStat to produce those data according to international standards, because if you produce data which do not live up to those international standards, the international organizations will not take your data and feed those data into their databases. Now, on the international investor side, they compare countries. They think, where can I invest my assets, my money, to achieve the best yield on my investment. So they compare economies, they compare the dynamism of economies from one country to the next. They can only do that if we in Saudi Arabia respect the same standards like the US, like other G20 countries. And that is why it is so important to understand those standards, to live up to those standards, to communicate those standards. And if there is trust in the numbers that GStat produces on Saudi Arabia, this is the basis for all international investors to make their assessment on the economy, on the development possibilities and potentials of this beautiful country here, and investment opportunities are there. We need to build trust on the data that we produce, that people are actually investing in this country.
دعني أختم معك دكتور هذا اللقاء بهذا السؤال: هل من الممكن أن نرى خصخصة لجهاز الإحصاء السعودي أو حتى بيانات أو أرقام بتكاليف مدفوعة؟
I think the main question we need to ask is what serves the country best. And to answer this question, I think making data available for decision makers, for research institutes, for international investors is the best investment you can make. Yeah? You can sell data, but when you sell data, you make it exclusive to those who are ready and able to pay for it. This is probably not the best way to spread the knowledge about the economy, the knowledge about the country around the world, around research institutes and within the country. So I am a strong supporter of the idea that data in itself needs to be considered as a public good, which needs to be delivered at the highest possible quality level. And when you talk about commercialization, then you can enter into statistical services, analysis that you can build on this data, which is accessible to everybody. But I don't think that we should make data available only to an exclusive group who is ready to pay for this data. There are other people who build analysis and then they sell analysis. That's fine. But the statistics offices supported by public funds should make their data available to all people and all the society who is interested in working with this data, and we should do that in a most transparent way and in the best accessible way. We are building a database currently which will enable you as an analyst to look how data developed over time and to look into the structure of certain statistics. This is very important to better understand the economy and to better understand the society. And this is the contribution we try to make in this country.
الدكتور كونوراد بيسيندورفر، الرئيس التنفيذي للهيئة العامة للإحصاء في السعودية، شكرا جزيلا لك.
شكرا. It was a pleasure to be in your interview.
الشكر موصول إليكم مشاهدينا. وصلنا لنهاية هذه المقابلة الخاصة، في أمل لقائكم في مقابلات أخرى.